I saw something on social media, and it's an expression that stuck with me, which is borrowed from that old quote about marketing. You know that 50% of token spend is useless. You just don't know which 50%. In our user base, and there are 35,000 or so bankers, investors on the platform, you see people driving token spend, inference spend on research tasks where they're leveraging the most advanced flagship models, the GPT 5.5s, for tasks that could be done by models that can perform the exact same task at lower latency at a fraction of the cost, 3x cheaper, 5x cheaper, even 10, 20x cheaper. And only because for the user, how can any one user keep up with the proliferation of models available to them? And frankly, why is any individual user incentivized to go for the less expensive model versus the most expensive model? What we find pretty consistently is users will default to the most expensive models, the max reasonings, the most token budgets the AI system enables for them. Partly it's that routing question of, can you take a task and have the task be performed equally well or better, and certainly faster by a much less expensive model? And then that dollar of token spend on that research task using the most advanced frontier model is actually so much less efficient, so much less valuable than the 25 cents or the 10 cents to perform that exact same task using a cheaper model. What's also true is the context around these AI agents really matters. If you're a CFO or you're an investment banker, you've surfaced the right context for those agents. If you have, for example, agents that are connected to your financial data, as opposed to, just leveraging MCP servers or scraping the web or scraping an SEC filing to get the same financial data, you can do it so much more efficiently with a direct connector, because the amount of tokens that agent needs to spend to actually arrive at the right data, the amount of loops it needs to go through before it finds the PE multiple that you're focused on or the revenue growth figure you're focused on, is so much less. And it's a little bit like the difference between using a fuel efficient car and a gas guzzling SUV. Both will get you where you need to go, but you don't need that SUV every single time. And so having that, set of context surfacers, those data connectors that matter to a workflow, might be connectivity to S&P or FactSet for an investment banker or investor relations analyst or what have you, makes a pretty big difference in the token efficiency of the workflow as well.
So, personal anecdote. This week I was researching how net dollar retention rates and the disclosures along with them have changed for 80 companies over the last 5 years. And so I threw the latest model of Claude at it, and it had to go back to 80 times 4 quarters. It had to go through a lot of these. This is the first time I've ever ran out of tokens on my personal Claude Max plan. I was on the $100 a month. I had to upgrade to the $200 a month to fix this. And then it got me to think, me as a small business owner here running this media and research and recruiting company, I had no idea which model I should have been using. I just wanted it done right and I wanted it done fast, but I ended up having to pay more. And you brought up this interesting notion of a broker or someone that sits in the middle. Where do you see that going? Because on one hand, nobody wants yesterday's newspaper, but on the other hand, I don't know which model to use if I do want to save money.
I think that role of a model broker is going to be so critical in how AI is deployed in knowledge work in general and in finance in particular. And that is the notion of this trusted intermediary between the suppliers of intelligence, the model companies, open source AI companies, and others that are in effect utilities for the entire knowledge economy, and the end users, the firms, the businesses that leverage that intelligence for work. In part because those brokers, to your point, have real-time workflow-specific data on how to tie a specific model to a specific output. Even when I look at just our own evaluations of financial work, we see that performance costs frontier for different models, for different kinds of financial work, as being very uneven, very jagged. The exact same work product can be produced at times with models 3 times cheaper or 5 times cheaper than with another model. Routing those user queries, as you say, CJ, to the appropriate model for the task at a point in time and then over time becomes really valuable, and I think can drive enormous savings, again, for the largest businesses in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's going to be a core function, particularly as the complexity of model procurement grows. In lots of ways, the analogy I've been using in other contexts is in the same way that for an airline, for a carrier, being very strategic about how fuel costs are hedged, forecasted, managed, the same thing will be true for knowledge work as it relates to tokens. Brokers are going to be a key part of doing that industry by industry.
It's a brave new world. If you think about the brokers, that's one component of it, right? They help you get the best pricing. But within the org, who do you think owns AI efficiency? Is it going to be engineering? Is it going to be finance? Is it going to be procurement? Is it going to be operations? Is it a department that doesn't exist yet?
I think businesses are trying to figure that out. But if I had to guess, I would guess the finance leader, the CFO ultimately, is at the center of that. In part because at the end of the day, everything's got to fit into a P&L. Anything that a business is underwriting around efficiency, whether it's in cost or revenue growth, has to map to a model. And finance has always been the backbone of accountability and numerical legibility in business. And I don't see that as being different in AI.
Today's episode is brought to you by Anrock, the sales tax platform behind companies like Anthropic, Notion, and Vanta. Here's a fun way to totally ruin a Tuesday. Open a letter from a state you've never set foot in, telling you that you owe back taxes you didn't know existed. Happened to me, because the rules never stop moving. States are now racing to tax AI, digital ads, streaming, really anything new, and they're doing it faster than a spreadsheet can keep up. Anrock handles all of it. One platform that watches your exposure everywhere, automates compliance, and flags risk before it turns into that nasty gram. That's why thousands of finance leaders trust Anrock to stay ahead. Talk to an Anrock sales tax expert for a personalized exposure estimate at anrock.com/RTN. That is ANROK.com/RTN.